Grandma's sudden demise, Brenda was left heartbroken. Meanwhile, Linda, who was the last person to see Grandma alive, was chased out of the hospital by Richard's men. Fear crept up Linda's spine. She knew that getting caught would mean jail time, or worse. And just then, out of nowhere, Linda saw a blue car speeding and heading straight toward her. The next thing she knew, she was lying on the ground in terrible pain. Ah! The person in the car grabbed onto the steering wheel while glaring at Linda, who lay not far from him. He watched as Linda crawled on the ground, covered in blood.
No. Is that...
Linda recognized the driver. It was Fritz. Just as he was about to drive over her again, he noticed Richard's men running over from the opposite side of the road. Fritz panics and runs away.
I'll be back soon to get you.
Brenda's eyes were fixed on her grandmother's bed. When she saw her shrouded in a white sheet, her heart sank. Her grandmother's face was obscured, and her own face went pale as she stumbled backwards. Harry and Cameron stood close to her. This can't be happening. Grandma was fine yesterday.
I'm sorry, Brenda. This should not have happened in our hospital.
Cameron swept Brenda into his arms and carried her to Grandmother's bedside, gently setting her down. Brenda raised a trembling hand and lifted the white cloth, revealing her grandmother's pale, serene face. Overwhelmed with emotion, Brenda fell to her knees and burst into tears. Grandma! Grandma! What am I going to do without you, Grandma? Even if you don't want to be with me, who else will? Were you angry with me yesterday? If you were, I'm sorry. Don't leave me. Please come back to me. Cameron gently patted her back. His heart ached for her.
Grandma will always love you, Brenda. She's not angry with you. She loves you very much and wants you to be happy.
I don't care about being happy. I just want Grandma back. What am I supposed to do now? Brenda's eyes were a deep red and streams of tears still ran down her face. She pulled herself together and turned towards Cameron. I want to have a proper funeral service. I want to see her off with dignity.
All right, I'll help you.
Brenda's loss was so huge that she could not get out of bed for days. On the day of the burial, Brenda stayed in front of the tombstone long after the service had ended. She couldn't stop crying. She was ready to say her final goodbye. I know I was the person you held on for. I know you didn't think you could leave me alone. But don't worry. I promise I'll be fine. Have you seen my mom yet? Take care of each other. I'll miss you. Brenda reached out her hand to Cameron and tried to make herself smile. The funeral was over, and she felt a lot better. She didn't want him to worry about her anymore. Let's go home, Cameron.
Okay, let's go home.
The funeral was over, and Cameron immediately focused his mind on finding out the truth of what had happened to Brenda's grandma. Harry and Martin met him in his office. Harry had something to show him.
This is a surveillance tape from the hospital. The night Brenda's mother was killed, a woman walked into the hospital ward at around 12 o'clock. She left long after, but returned the next morning at around 7. She entered the ward again, but ran out in a panic almost immediately. She even collided with Dad.
She was up to something, sneaking around like that. You could tell immediately she's a bad egg.
Yeah, but we've checked the body several times. Brenda's grandmother died of a sudden heart attack. There's no doubt.
That's obviously because that woman went in and told her things that would rile her up. She brought the heart attack on.
There's just one thing.
What?
Brenda's grandmother was already having heart problems. She had been hospitalized for a couple of days. If she had felt something happening, she should have pressed the alarm. But she didn't. That's why we weren't there to help her.
Are you saying Brenda's grandmother wanted to die?
We can't rule out this possibility. What I can't figure out is why.
Cameron was still looking at the video. He was in deep thought. The room was silent until he turned around to face Harry.
Have you found out who the mystery woman is?
Her name is Linda Lincoln. She's Brenda's cousin. It seems she was also behind Brenda's kidnapping. The old woman was her grandmother too. And coincidentally, she was in a major car accident right outside the hospital the day she died.
Serves her right.
Make arrangements. I want to see this woman.
Okay, I will see to it right away.
Linda lay in the hospital ward, Her face was pale, and she was in such a state of mental distress that it almost bordered on madness.
My legs! I want them back! Who said they could take them? Give them back!
June was sitting by her daughter's bedside. She was frightened by Linda's extreme reaction, and she stood up and stepped back in shock.
Linda, calm down.
Calm down? How can I calm down? My legs are gone! I'm a cripple! How am I supposed to calm down? I might as well not be alive! I'm going to get that monster Fritz. And as for Brenda...
Just as June was about to say something, the room's door suddenly opened. 2 men in black suits walked in.
What are you people trying to do? Isn't this enough? Why won't you leave me alone?
Harry came back to meet Cameron in his office. He had urgent news to share.
Someone took her out of the hospital this morning. Before we could get to her, she was gone. There's no trace of her.
Cameron's eyes darkened. He suddenly stood up, grabbed his suit jacket, and proceeded to put it on.
Where are you going?
Don't worry about it.
Cameron had a hunch about who could be responsible for Linda's disappearance. He drove to the Kent residence and marched straight in through the front door. When Jeffrey saw Cameron, he came forward to greet him.
Young Mr. Kent, welcome.
Cameron ignored him and looked over at Richard, who was sitting in a chair drinking tea.
What are you hiding?
Will you sit down and talk?
No thanks.
I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about, Cameron.
I think you do. I want to know why you came to the hospital to see Grandma that morning.
I just went to see her.
Cameron's dark eyes turned ice cold, and his lips tightened into a thin, straight line. Richard couldn't help but smirk.
You don't believe me.
I want the truth, not vague nonsense.
Cameron knew his father was holding something back.
All right, I'll tell you. I woke up in the morning and saw a message that Brenda's grandmother had sent me in the middle of the night. She told me to take good care of Brenda. It seems she was sending me her last wishes. And I was afraid something might happen to her.
Let me see the text message.
I was so shocked when I saw it that I dropped my phone heading out. It broke, so I can't show it to you.
Cameron stared at Richard with cold eyes. It was obvious that whatever the truth was, Richard wouldn't let him see the message.
What about Linda? Why are you hiding her?
What? I'm not hiding anyone. Cameron, you can't say these things with no evidence.
Do you think I won't find out?
Then I guess you'd better go and investigate.
Cameron suddenly spun around and left without so much as another glance at his father. Richard heaved a sigh of relief when Cameron disappeared from view. He leaned back in the chair and wrestled with his lingering fear.
Sir, what if Cameron does find her?
Help! Somebody help me!
Linda was alone and scared. She had no idea where she was. Richard decided not to send Linda away, but to keep her alive, far from human civilization, so nobody could find her. But Cameron was determined to get her at any cost. Will this be the end of Linda? Will Cameron find out about Richard's plan? And how will Brenda cope with her grandma's loss?
Hi, Brenda here. Hope you are loving Love Bargain. Keep following us as we release a new episode of Season 1 daily on YouTube. You can jump the queue and unlock all seasons of the audio series by installing the Pocket FM app now. Just click on the link in the description. To watch the next episode of Season 1, tap here, and to watch the full Season 1, click on the playlist.